It's easy work boxing. I'm about to hit you everywhere but under your feet with this one. This is a video for Angel Garcia talking about Keith Thurman, well, basically dissing to Keith Thurman, saying that Keith Thurman was stripped of the WBC title. Now, I like Angel Garcia. One of my favorite phrases that he says that the truth is the truth and there's not a cloud in the sky that could cover it. I like what he brings to the fight game. I like his mouthpiece, what he does to his son's opponents, how he angers them and pisses them off. But I got to go in on him about what he did towards Keith Thurman today in his video. Now today in the video, Angel Garcia was saying that Keith Thurman was stripped, that he didn't vacate the belt. But like we all know that this is still a rumor. The WBC hasn't came out once and said that Keith Thurman was stripped of his belt. For some reason, Angel Garcia has a hard-on or hates Keith Thurman for defeating his son. Either way it go, if the WBC stripped Keith Thurman of the belt or he vacated, it doesn't make a difference of what he did to your son. At the end of the day, your son literally lost a 12-round decision fight. We couldn't give Danny no more than 4 rounds, 8 rounds to 4, and probably 9 rounds to 3. But he's saying as if the title still belongs to Danny. But Danny has to fight Sean Porter in order to get that title back around his waist. And like I said before, I don't believe Danny Garcia will be able to defeat Sean Porter. With the pressure that Sean Porter brings to the table, the roughness that he brings to the table, you have to ask yourself, have you ever seen Danny Garcia fight an opponent like Sean Porter? And we all seen a recent beef where Sean Porter stepped in the ring and was talking to Danny Garcia and how they wanted to fight. And from the way that when they was arguing in the ring, Sean Porter literally wants to eat Danny Garcia alive. So, and the way that Sean Porter has been fighting title eliminators, 2 title eliminators to get to that belt, I don't think that Danny Garcia will be prepared for what Sean Porter going to bring to the table that night. This will be a great fight. I can't wait to see it. As you already know, as you can hear from how I'm saying it, that I'm going for Sean Porter in this fight. Danny Garcia is a great fighter. You know, left hook is amazing. He drops everybody with it. And we've seen Sean Porter get dropped from a left hook by Adrian Broner. And you know that we can't say that Danny Garcia will be able to knock Sean Porter out. But I will say that there's a chance that Sean Porter could get hit by that left and get dropped. But I don't believe that's going to happen in the fight. I believe that Sean Porter will take that belt and go home with it. Sean Porter's hungry for that belt. It's been almost 2 years waiting on fighting Keith Thurman to be lined up for that WBC title. But to Angel Garcia, I like what he does. You know, I like how he tortures his son's opponents. I even seen that he really made Keith Thurman mad with comments he made, even though it was really out of hand by calling him a bitch-ass nigga. You know, and as black people, if anybody's watching who's other than black, you really have to be around us from growing up to call us a nigga. We just don't let you slide with that. You know, even though Danny Garcia and his father is with, I think not Italian or, no, Puerto Rican. They're Puerto Rican, even though they say that Puerto Ricans are black. You know, still it was the disrespect of how he said it, you know, and the way he put it to anger Keith Thurman. But either way it goes, like I said in my last video, whether Danny Garcia or Sean Porter win, one of them, when Keith Thurman comes back, they're gonna have to fight Keith Thurman. So you can say what you want to say now, Angel Garcia, but what will happen the next time when Keith Thurman is not on injuries or has injuries and he fights your son? Because personally, I feel that Keith Thurman could have knocked your son out. And it was obvious that Keith Thurman was injured in that fight. If you're a fan of Keith Thurman, if you watch Keith Thurman fight, Keith Thurman doesn't really fight like that. Keith Thurman was really off balance, jumping out with his right hooks and left hooks. Keith Thurman really can box. It took him a minute, like he said himself, he couldn't box at first, but if you go back and you watch his fights against Soto Karass and fighters before he got to Sean Porter and Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman would throw that jab, go to the body, everything. But you can obviously see that Keith Thurman was really injured going against Danny Garcia. And while he's talking shit, you know, at the same time, Keith Thurman beat Sean Porter and your son. So to sit up and go on there and disrespect him and say this and that about him, you still had to give the man respect, because he didn't go out there with a brick or a hammer and defeat your son. He went out there with 2 hands and won by unanimous decision. It wasn't a majority decision. He won by unanimous, which means the judge just seen that he was willing to fight convincingly. So, you know, we're just going to have to see what this fight does that's coming up, which I already tell y'all, I have no doubt in my mind that Sean Porter will take this fight. I don't mean to doubt Danny Garcia, because Danny Garcia really steps up when it's a big name. There's one thing about Danny Garcia that no one really has mentioned, even though to me, he lost to Lamont Peterson. He lost to Herrera. I can't really think of any other fighter right now that he really lost to. But those are his biggest 2 losses to me, Herrera and Lamont Peterson. But Angel Garcia, for a guy who never stepped in the ring, he talks trash shit. You know what I'm saying? Cash shit. And even though it's at times out of hand, but sometimes you like to see it. And at times when he's fighting opponents, I really don't like it, because I feel like Danny Garcia should be the one talking more trash than his father. But I guess he let his father get into his opponent's head, which is a good idea. You know, he don't have to talk. He really let his father do the work for him, and then just go out there and do what he does in the ring. But to sit up and diss the guy that beat your son, I don't know what Keith Thurman really did. Because at one point, Angel Garcia that said that Keith Thurman Danny Garcia broke Keith Thurman's arm. I don't know how the fuck that happened. But Ponytail, as he called Keith Thurman, must have got under his skin somehow, some way during that fight. I seen that when they lost the fight, or in the ring as they were announcing who would win the fight, he tried to tell Danny to lift his hands up so he could win, because they're so used to Danny getting decisions where he's lost. But unfortunately for Danny, that didn't happen in that fight. But whichever way it may be, I told y'all, you know, I'm a Keith Thurman fan. I still support Keith Thurman. When he comes back, I know Keith Thurman's still going to do his thing. And I hope that he doesn't come back until he's fully in good health. Because I know when Keith Thurman comes back in full good health, he will continue to run his division like he did before. But I just had to get on here and make a comment about that video. We don't know what happened about the WBC belt until the WBC gets on and explains what happened. If he was stripped, oh well. He, in my opinion, from the lack of fighting and the injuries, they should have took the belt from Keith Thurman. And Angel Garcia made a good point. He said that if Keith Thurman wasn't stripped, if he didn't vacate, then why didn't he release the WBA belt? And that was because they stripped him of the WBC, which is all good and dandy. But at the end of the day, he's still the WBA super welterweight champion. And when he comes back, or unless the time period is too long, he probably may have to vacate that belt. But to the fans out there who is watching this, you know, you can't believe what people say. And you know, Angel Garcia is very biased against Keith Thurman. We have to wait and see what the WBC says. If WBC stripped him, or if he vacated, it's all good and dandy. Now we get to see what the welterweight division can do with the belt release. We get to see the next WBC champion, which I believe in my heart will be Sean Porter. I don't think that Danny Garcia has enough to keep Sean Porter off him for 12 rounds. If anything, it'll be to probably even worse than what Keith Thurman did to him because of the frustration that, because of the frustration that Shawn Porter has went through trying to get to that belt. And I don't believe that anything will stop Shawn Porter to get that, because once you get the belt, you will gain power. You become a king again. Your crown is on your head. You know, you can dictate and you can move how you want to move. And I think that's what the Team Porter is really looking towards, is getting a belt back. You know, Shawn Porter held the IBF belt, which Errol Spence holds now. And I said this before, you know, for some reason he didn't want to go after the IBF belt. But a lot of people don't know that after Shawn Porter lost to Kell Brook, they dropped him past, I think, top 10 for the IBF belt. And I think it's really a disrespect level that's going on with Shawn Porter in the IBF, because he wasn't supposed to go past, you know, top 10 in the IBF rankings. And Shawn Porter's father really talks about that, as he talks about when they bring up why Shawn Porter won't go at Errol Spence. It's because of the disrespect that the IBF gave Shawn Porter when he lost to Kell Brook. Shawn Porter at least should have been number 2, number 3, but they completely put him out the rankings. But like I said, to Angel Garcia, you know, to Danny Garcia, I love Angel Garcia. I love his comments. He hypes fights. He makes it good for people to want to go and sit down and watch the fights. But as far as him, you know, coming in and wearing your son's belts and got a crown on your head like you and there taking punches, I think that's kind of crazy. But at the end of the day, I still like Angel Garcia. But your son would not take that belt from Shawn Porter. I know that for a fact. Shawn Porter gonna come out there like a goddamn Mack truck. I'm telling y'all. There will be no stopping Shawn Porter at all. Will it be a knockout? I can't say, because like I said before, Shawn Porter to me really doesn't have a lot of power. But Shawn Porter comes to win. So I hope Angel Garcia and Danny Garcia are really ready and training for this fight, because you all know that Shawn Porter will be ready and will be training for this fight. He's beat 2 opponents just to get close to this belt. He wanted a rematch with Keith Thurman, but Keith Thurman is out of the picture right now. I've seen clips where people saying it's Keith Thurman's wife. That could be it. Maybe Keith Thurman doesn't have the fire to box anymore, which is all good and gravy. Like I said, I salute him for even just stepping in the ring and giving us the good fights that he has gave us. But we'll see what this all ends up. And like I said, it's good that he gave up the belts, because now we can see everybody fight each other, no one with injuries and things like that. So we can probably see a unified, well, not a unified, but an undisputed welterweight champion, maybe in the beginning of 2019, hopefully. Because Jeff Horn has a belt. When Danny Garcia and Shawn Porter fight, they'll have the WBC belt. No one will be unified yet, because Keith Thurman still holds the WBA until he comes back. But you know, basically we'll just have to sit around and wait and see who's the guy that's going to face Keith Thurman. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, all ways go towards Keith Thurman. Even if they all fight Errol Spence, you know, if Terrence Crawford beats Jeff Horn, if Shawn Porter beats Danny Garcia, if Errol Spence beat any one of those guys, at the end of the day, they'll still have to wait on Keith. And I don't see anybody beating Keith Thurman in great shape. With the injuries, yes. And he still fought well with the injuries. He still beat two prime contenders in the top level with injuries. So what's to say when he comes back good in health that he won't defeat anybody that's standing his way with belts? But y'all know I'm a Keith Thurman fan. I'm not being biased. I just believe that Keith Thurman will take over and dominate the welterweight division. But I just had to get on here and say that about Angel Garcia and Danny Garcia. You know, I like them both. I like what they bring to the table. But this easy work boxing. Thank you for your time. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm out.